Hello there, welcome to the cave. Today we're going to talk about, is NIO stock still a buy even with it floating around 50 bucks? So today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about earnings, we're going to talk about the valuation, the market cap, and we're also going to talk about future potential catalysts that are going to blast this one to the moon. So we got a couple things that we're going to go ahead and talk about with this stock here that's hopefully going to make it still a buy. So the first thing I want to talk about is market cap when it comes to NIO. So NIO has a market cap of 66 billion and they've made so far in 2020 about a revenue of 10 billion. So with that in mind, let's look at a couple other examples. And these are examples from 2019 here for revenue wise. So Tesla, which had 473 billion worth of value, had a 2019 revenue of 24 billion. Granted, that being said, in 2019 it was a cheaper stock, and they're on track for much more in 2020. But that being said, that's in kind of a similar, I don't know if I want to say bubble, but maybe valuation that NIO has. So GM has a revenue in 2019 of 137 billion, and Ford has a revenue of 155 billion, and you can see the valuations of those. GM is 61 billion and Ford is 35 billion. So those are worth less than NIO is right now, which is quite surprising. So is this going to be a situation kind of like an Amazon where the value is never really going to make sense with this particular stock? Kind of where you're not going to find a proper PE like Tesla, and is it always going to trade quite richly? Potentially it will. And this one, there's just so much more potential right now, I feel like, in EVs versus general combustion engines, and GM and Ford have kind of been trailing off the last few years, where it's like these ones are trailing up and uptaking and making so much more vehicles. So I feel like what you're paying for with this market cap is potential and value right now. I mean, it's a growth stock, so right now you could have potentially a large amount of growth, and NIO has been basically doubling up. It seems like they're like 145%, which we'll get into with the earnings, year to year of growth. So they are having a ridiculous amount of growth, and that's also some of the premium that you're paying for. That being said, it could be seen as overvalued at the moment. So here's what we know about NIO stock right now. Here's what we know about the last quarter, and here's what we know about the next quarter. So we know this last quarter they delivered 12,206 vehicles. This is their ES8, ES6, and EC6. And their EC6 is the new model that they only made a couple of. I believe it was 18 that they sold or something in that range. You can correct me in the comments. But they didn't sell many of these EC6s because they just started making them, just started getting orders for them. So in October as well, they sold 5,055 vehicles, which was a monthly record. So what's nice with this one is they released their monthly amount of vehicles that they sell. So you can kind of tell based on the monthly amount that they're selling how they're going to do on their earnings. So I had a pretty good inkling, oh, they're going to do quite well in this earnings, just at least in terms of how many vehicles they sold and probably in how much revenue they brought in, which they did. In Q4, we can also see that they're going to be probably giving about 16,500 to 17,000 vehicles. Now, they normally undershoot how much that they are prompting that they're going to give out. So I would not be surprised at all if they're going to be having more than 17,000 vehicles for the next quarter. And again, you can keep track month to month when they release their monthly release on their investor relations page, how much vehicles that they're bringing out. So if they eventually have one that undercuts quite a bit, then you can be like, oh man, they're probably not going to hit that goal that they had, and that can be a good indicator of things maybe souring a little bit. Granted, if they don't break another record, since they've broken like 5 records in a row month delivery vehicle wise, then that's probably going to cause the share price to take a big old dump. Losses were narrowed, so I think they are heading towards the route of profitability. Granted, they are in huge growth mode right now, so it's probably going to be a minute on that. NIO Day. So NIO Day is going to be in January, and people are thinking they're going to be announcing their autonomous driving that they have dumped a little bit of R&D money into, and then they also are going to be announcing their new model that they're going to be having as well. So it's going to be a very, very bullish day in January, probably when that happens, and then they're spending less on R&D again, hopefully heading towards that profitability that we're hoping for. Is NIO stock a buy, a sell, or a hold currently with everything that's going on? So the biggest thing that I find negative about this is the value has about doubled in the last month, which is kind of hard to see that the market cap has gone up so much. So now the question is it overvalued? And that's so hard to gauge in something that's a value stock like this, because we can't check the traditional markers like a PE or anything like that. We just kind of have to hope it's not in a bubble, look at what they're doing and see how much they're growing, and kind of hope it's not overvalued. Now, that being said, you could say that all EVs are kind of in a bubble somewhat, but is that just kind of how they're going to trade? Like Tesla, is it always going to trade at a big premium? So it's hard to see. But right now in NIO, I see Tesla like in its infancy. I see in NIO because they're kind of mirroring the same type of way that Tesla did, where they started growing really, really nicely, started bringing out these new models that the average Joe could afford, and I feel like NIO is really mirroring that. Plus, they have the backing of the Chinese government, plus they're in China, which is probably a good thing with the whole entire economy and the pandemic that's going on right now. So it could possibly be a good thing that they're not in America right now. So, January, we can expect to see a new model drop on NIO Day. We can also expect probably some autonomous driving announcements that they also made on NIO Day, which could be really, really good. Q4, I think they're going to break more records and they're going to do just awesome with it as well. So what is the final verdict on this one? Is it a buy, a sell, or a hold? Now, nobody would fault you for selling and taking some mega gains that you could be making right now. But that being said, I think the market was kind of poised to dump this one after earnings because they were expecting something that was very unreasonable. But it actually went up after earnings, and they had phenomenal earnings. So I don't blame it for going up even more. So this one, I think you can't really lose if you buy it and just hold it if you're a long-term investor. If you're in this for the short amount of time, it could see a huge dip back just because the value of it grew like crazy within the last few weeks here. So it could see a significant pullback, but I think you won't lose on this one if you just buy it and hold it. I don't see any negative indicators of this company doing anything that's going to cause them to go bankrupt, doing anything that's causing them to lose a lot of cash. I think they are heading towards profitability. They're doing quite well on that, and their growth is substantial. They've been growing year over year like 150% in terms of vehicle sales and in revenue. So they're doing quite well on all these things. So in my book here, I'd say they still are a buy and a hold, but if you're in it for the short term, I wouldn't touch this one. But if you're in it for the long-term EV play, I would say it is still a buy and a hold. And if you own shares, I would just say probably a hold right now if you've already maxed out your position, and maybe wait for hopefully some sort of dip before buying any more. So that is what I got for you. Thanks for watching. You guys have a good one. Make a lot of money.